Chapter 1. Health Problems. There were 4 of us: Jack, Tom, Samuel, Mark, and myself. My friends call me Jay and Montmorency. We were sitting in my room, smoking and talking about our bad health. We were all feeling very ill, and we were unhappy about it. Mark said he felt dizzy sometimes. Jack felt dizzy too. My big problem was my liver. I knew I had a bad liver. I had read about all the symptoms of liver disease in a book. I had every symptom that was written. Every time I read about an illness, I realized that I had it. One day, I had a little health problem. I went to the British Museum library to read about it. After some time, I began reading about another illness. I don't remember the name now, but it was something terrible. I knew I had that terrible illness, too. I began reading the book from the letter A to the letter Z. I had the symptoms of all the diseases in the book, except for one. I didn't have housemaid's knee. This made me a bit unhappy. Why didn't I have housemaid's knee, too? With all the diseases I had, I knew my life was short. I tried to examine myself. I tried to feel my heart. I tried to look at my tongue. When I had walked into the library, I had been a happy, healthy man. When I left it, I was a very ill man. I went to see my doctor. He is an old friend. Whenever I think I am ill, he examines me and says I am fine. A doctor really must have practice. This time, I thought he would get more practice with me than with 1,000 normal patients. After all, normal patients have only 1 or 2 diseases each. "Well, what's wrong with you?" he asked. I said, "If I tell you what is wrong with me, you will die before I finish. Life is too short. I'll tell you what is not wrong with me. I don't have housemaid's knee, but I have everything else." I told him about what I had read at the library. He looked at me carefully, listened to my heart, and looked at my tongue. After that, he wrote a prescription and gave it to me. I put it in my pocket and went out. I didn't read the prescription. I took it to the chemist and gave it to him. He read it and gave it back to me. He said, "I don't have the things on the prescription." "But you're a chemist, aren't you?" I asked. He said, "You're right, sir. I'm a chemist. I don't have a shop and a hotel." I read the prescription. It said, "Every 6 hours, 1 pound of good fresh meat, 1 pint of beer every morning, a 10-mile walk, go to bed no later than 11 o'clock each night, and don't read books about things you don't understand." I followed the doctor's prescription. It saved my life. I now feel rather well, except for my liver problem. The main symptom of liver disease is a general feeling of sleepiness and no interest in working. I have suffered from this illness ever since I was a boy. Medical science was not advanced in those days. Doctors did not know that I had liver illness. They thought I was lazy. People called me a lazy little devil and said, "Go and do your work." They did not know I was ill with liver disease. Instead of giving me liver pills, they gave me blows on the head. Those blows were good for me, because after each blow, I went to do my work. That old remedy worked better than a box of modern pills. That evening, Jack, Tom, Mark, and I sat in my room. We described our illnesses. I explained to Jack and Tom Mark how I felt in the morning. Tom Mark told us how he felt when he went to bed. Then Jack stood up and told us how he felt at night. Jack always thinks he is ill, but there is really nothing wrong with him. At that moment, Mrs. Poppets, the housekeeper, served our dinner. We were not hungry. We ate some meat, onions, and cake. We had no interest in food. We began talking about our illnesses again. We all knew that our illnesses were caused by too much work. "We need a rest," said Mark. "A rest and a change," Jack added. "Our minds are too tired from too much work. We must rest our minds." "Let's go to the countryside," I said. "We'll find a nice quiet place with no people." Mark said, "Oh, how boring. In the country, everyone goes to bed at 8 o'clock. You can't even find a newspaper." "If you want a rest and a change, then the best place is the sea," said Jack. "What a terrible idea," I said. "A sea trip gives you seasickness. Who wants a whole week of seasickness? You leave on Monday and you're feeling well. On Tuesday you feel worse. Then on Wednesday you're really sick. On Thursday and Friday you're almost dead. On Saturday you can finally drink a few teaspoons of tea. On Sunday you can walk again and eat some food. Then on Monday you're happy because it's time to get off the boat." So Jack said, "Let's go up the river. We'll have fresh air and quiet. The hard work on the boat will make us hungry, so we'll enjoy our food. We'll be so tired at the end of the day that we'll sleep well," Mark said. "You don't have any trouble sleeping, Jack. There are only 24 hours in the day, and you sleep most of that time. If you sleep any more, you're dead. However, I like your idea of a holiday on the river, Thames." I liked it too. Jack was surprised that we both liked his idea. The only one who didn't like the idea was M. Maroney, my fox terrier. He looked at us with his big eyes. "You like the idea, but I don't," his face seemed to say. "On the river, there's nothing for me to do. I don't like looking at the trees. I certainly don't swim. If I see a rat, you won't stop the boat so I can run after it. When I'm asleep, you'll probably rock the boat and I'll fall into the river. The whole idea is stupid." We were 3-1, so we decided to go on the river trip. Chapter 2. Planning the trip. We looked at the maps and discussed plans. We decided to start from Kingston the following Saturday. "Mark, you and I will go to get the boat at Kingston," I said. "Then we'll take it up the river to Chai, where we'll meet Jack." Jack works in the city until the afternoon. He goes to sleep at a bank from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., Monday to Friday, except on Saturdays. On Saturday, they wake him up at 2 o'clock and put him outside the door. The next problem was where to sleep at night. Jack and I didn't want to sleep at inns. We wanted to camp out in the middle of nature. "How beautiful," we said. "Sleeping in the country under the stars by the river. I can imagine it all," I said. "There is a golden sunset. The river is moving along quietly. The forest is full of trees and birds. The grass around us is green, and little flowers grow here and there. Soon it is dark. We row our boat into a quiet corner on the river. We put up our tent and cook a simple, healthy meal. We all sit around a warm fire and eat our meal. We look up and see the moon and the stars. Then we sit in silence. How wonderful this is. We go to bed, and then we dream under the stars. We dream that the world is young again. As we all sat there dreaming, Mark said, "What happens if it rains?" There is nothing poetic about Mark. He is not romantic at all. If Mark ever has tears in his eyes, he is eating raw onions. If you stand by the sea with Mark and say, "Listen to the sounds of the sea," can you hear spirits singing sad songs, the songs of those who died in these waters? He will take you by the arm and say, "I understand, my friend. You're not feeling well. Now come with me. I know a place around the corner where you can get some good whiskey. You'll feel better soon." Mark always knows where you can find a good whiskey. Mark was right about camping out. When it rains, it's not nice at all. Just imagine it. It is evening. You are all wet. There is water in the boat, and all your things are wet. You find a place on the riverbank. You get out of the boat and pull out the tent. Now 2 of you try to put it up. The tent is wet and very heavy. It is raining hard. The wind is blowing and the wet tent flies about. It falls on your head and makes you angry. It is difficult to put up a tent in good weather. It is impossible to do so in wet weather. The other man is of no help at all. He is a complete fool. The wind continues to blow and the rain continues to fall. You look at the other man and say, "What are you doing with your side of the tent?" "What are you doing?" he answers. "Don't pull on your side," you shout. "I didn't pull, you pulled," he shouts. "You're doing everything wrong," you shout. "What?" he shouts. "I can't hear you. You don't know how to put up a tent. We'll never put up this tent," you say. At this point, the third man has pulled the boat out of the water. He is completely wet and wants to know why the tent isn't up yet. Everyone is wet and angry. Mark was right. Camping out in rainy weather is not a good idea. We decided to camp out in good weather and sleep at an inn or a hotel in bad weather. Montmorency agreed with this decision. He likes inns and hotels. Montmorency doesn't like the quiet life. He prefers noise and confusion. He looks like a good, well-behaved dog, but he's not. When you look at Montmorency, you see an angel from paradise in the form of a small fox terrier. You think he is a sweet, gentle little dog. When old ladies and gentlemen look at him, tears come to their eyes. But when he killed 12 chickens and I paid for them, I changed my opinion of Montmorency. In 1 year, he had 14 street fights with other dogs. An angry woman brought me her dead cat and called me a murderer. Montmorency loves to join the worst dogs. He then takes them around town to fight other dogs. This is his idea of a happy life. Chapter 3. Packing. The following evening we met again to discuss our plans, Charles said. Now we must decide what to take with us. You get a piece of paper, Jay, and you get a pencil, Jack. I'll write the list. Charles is always like this. He tells everyone what to do, and he does nothing. My old Uncle Podger was just like Charles. When Uncle Podger did a job, everybody in the house helped. One day, Uncle Podger bought a picture. Aunt Podger asked, "Where can we put this picture?" "Leave it to me. Don't worry about it. I'll do it all," Uncle Podger said. He sent one of the girls to buy the nails. Then he sent one of the boys to tell her the size of the nails. He sent Bill to get the hammer, and he sent Tom to get the ruler. "Now get me a kitchen chair, Jim. I need 2 people to hold the chair. Maria, come here and hold the light. Tom, come here and give me the nail." He finally had the nail in his hand, but it fell on the floor. Everyone looked everywhere for the nail. When someone finally found it, Uncle Podger lost the hammer. "Where's the hammer? Where did I put the hammer? Help me find the hammer." When we found the hammer, he lost the place on the wall to put the picture. So each one of us climbed up on the chair to look for the place. Each one thought it was a different place. When Uncle Podger climbed up on the chair, he fell on the piano. Aunt Podger was very angry. She said, "The next time you put a picture on the wall, please tell me. I'll go and spend a week with my mother." Uncle Podger tried again and again. At midnight, the picture was on the wall. However, it was not straight. The wall was dirty. Everyone was tired and unhappy. Uncle Podger looked at the picture and said, "It was such an easy job." I told Charles, "You get the paper and pencil, Jack will write the list, and I'll do the work." The first list was too long. We threw it away and started another list. "In order to travel to the north part of the River Thames, we need a small boat," Jack said. "With a small boat, we can carry only necessary things. We won't take a heavy tent. We can put a canvas cover over the boat at night. It will be like a little house, warm and comfortable." We made a list of all the clothes we needed. Jack said he knew everything about the right clothes for a trip. We discovered later that this wasn't true. We talked about food next. Jack said, "Let's continue with breakfast. For breakfast, we'll need a frying pan." "That's quite difficult to eat," Charles said, smiling. "Stop being stupid, Charles," I said. "Let's continue," said Jack. "We'll need tea, sugar, eggs, bacon, bread, butter, and jam. For lunch, we can take biscuits, cold meat, and fruit, but no cheese. The smell of cheese is too strong. After a day or two, everything will smell of cheese. For dinner, we can take meat pies, fruit pies, tomatoes, and green vegetables. This good food will keep us healthy," Jack said. "We didn't take wine or beer because they both make you sleep," Jack continued. "We'll also need a teapot, a pan, and a camping stove. We don't want a paraffin oil stove." "Oh no, not a paraffin oil stove?" I said. "We once took a paraffin oil stove. It was horrible. The smell of paraffin oil was everywhere. The river smelled of paraffin. The wind smelled of paraffin. Even the sunset smelled of paraffin. When we visited the town of Marlow, it smelled of paraffin too. Even the church of Marlow smelled of paraffin. The countryside for miles around smelled of paraffin. We decided never to take a paraffin oil stove again. The next day, we bought everything we needed. We met in the evening to pack our suitcases. We got a large suitcase for the clothes and 2 large hampers for the food and utensils. I am very good at packing. Packing is one of those things that I do best. I'll organize the packing, I said to Jack and Charles. They agreed. Jack sat in the armchair and Charles put his feet up on the table. This was not what I had intended. I wanted to organize the packing, not do it. I wanted Jack and Charles to do all the work. However, I didn't say anything. I started packing the clothes. It took a long time, but I finally finished. I sat on the big suitcase to close it. "Are you putting the boots in?" asked Charles. I had forgotten them. "Why didn't you tell me before?" I said. Charles said nothing. Jack laughed. I was furious. I opened the suitcase again and packed the boots. Then an awful idea came to me. Did I pack my toothbrush? I started looking for it. I took everything out of the suitcase. I found Jack's toothbrush. I found Charles's toothbrush. But I didn't find mine. In the end, I found it inside a boot. I packed everything again. When I finished, Jack asked me, "Is the soap in the suitcase?" "I don't care about the soap," I answered. I sat on the big suitcase again to close it. Then I remembered that my cigarettes were in the suitcase. I opened it again and finally closed it. At 10:50 p.m., there were still the 2 hampers to pack. Charles and Jack decided to pack them. I sat down to watch. Chapter 4. Ready for the trip. There were dishes, cups, bottles, pans, tomatoes, cakes, and many other things to pack in the hampers. As soon as Jack and Charles started packing, they broke a cup, and this was just the beginning. Jack is the worst packer in the world. When Jack dies, Charles will be the worst packer in the world. They walked on things and broke them. Charles put a big jar of jam on top of a tomato and crushed it. Jack stepped on a big packet of butter and Charles sat on it. Soon there was butter everywhere. They packed the pies in the hamper, then they put heavy things on top of them. The pies were crushed, just like the tomato. In the middle of all of this was Montmorency. Of course, he put his leg in the sugar, and soon there was sugar everywhere. He ran away with the teaspoons and pretended that the lemons were rats, killing 3 of them. This was Montmorency's idea of fun. At 1 o'clock in the morning, the packing was finished. We were ready for bed. "What time shall I wake you up?" Jack said. Charles said 7 o'clock. I said, 6 o'clock. "Wake us up at 5:30, Jack," we said. It was Mrs. Poppet who woke me up the next morning. "Do you know that it's nearly 9 o'clock?" "What?" I shouted as I jumped out of bed. I woke up Charles and Jack. We began to get ready and remembered that we had packed our toothbrushes, so we went to get them out of the suitcase. This was not an easy job. At last, we were ready to eat breakfast. While we ate breakfast, Jack read the newspaper. He told us about the people killed on the river and about the bad weather report. Jack went to work, and Charles and I finished our breakfast. That morning, Montmorency invited 2 of his friends to the house. They fought most of the time. When we were finally ready, we carried our luggage to the road. We waited 20 minutes for a taxi. Taxis usually come every 3 minutes. A crowd of people was watching us. They looked at us, at Montmorency, and at Montmorency's friends. They looked at all our luggage, a big suitcase, a small bag, 2 big hampers, some pans, some umbrellas, and 5 coats and raincoats. At Waterloo Station, we took the 11:05 train to Kingston. At Kingston, our boat was waiting for us below the bridge. Charles and I put our luggage in it. We got on the boat happily, but Montmorency was worried. Charles took the oars, and we started our 2-week trip on the River Thames. Charles was wearing a red and orange blazer. It was a beautiful sunny day. We were enjoying the first moments of our holiday when we passed Hampton Court Palace. Charles asked, "Have you ever visited the maze here?" He said he had gone into the maze once to show a friend. He studied a map of the maze before going in. He knew it was very easy to get out again. Charles said to his friend, "We'll go in and walk around for 10 minutes, then we'll come out and have lunch." It's very easy. Take the first turn to the right each time. In the maze, they met some people who had been there for 45 minutes. They wanted to get out because they were lost. Charles said, "Follow me. I'm going out in 10 minutes." The people thanked him and started following him. Other people began following Charles, too. Some of them were worried and afraid. He continued turning to the right, but he was still in the maze. Charles got lost. The people were angry with him. They all started calling for help. A young keeper heard them and came to help, but he got lost, too. Finally, the old keeper came back from lunch. He let the people out. Everyone was tired and angry. Charles said, "Let's ask Jack to try the maze on our return trip." "Not a bad idea," I said. When we passed Mola Lock, we were the only boat in the big lock. Usually the lock is a very busy place. On Sundays there are boats everywhere. People like the river and the sun. It's such a beautiful picture. The river, the trees, the flowers, and the people in their colorful clothes. At Hampton, Charles wanted to stop the boat and have a look at the church. I don't like visiting churches, but Charles loves it. I came on the trip only because I wanted to visit Hampton Church. You know I love churches, churchyards, and tombs. The idea of not seeing Hampton Church with Mrs. Thomas's tomb makes me angry. "Who is Mrs. Thomas?" I asked. "I don't know, but she has a strange tomb," I said. "We must be at Shepperton at 5 to meet Jack," Charles said. "Why can't Jack be here to do some work? Why doesn't he help us with this heavy boat?" "Does he do at the bank?" "He sits behind a piece of glass all day and does nothing. I work. Why doesn't he work? I'm going to have a drink. There are no pubs near here. The nearest pub is far away." I said, "What? We'll all die of thirst. No pubs? If you're thirsty, we have water in the boat." I said, "Water. Water makes people ill." He said, "However, I am very thirsty and I must drink something." So he took the bottle and drank some water. Chapter 5. First day on the boat. We stopped at Kempton Park and had lunch under the trees. Good food always calms Mark. We reached Sunbury Lock at 3:30. We then went to Walton, which is a historical town. Julius Caesar stayed there with his soldiers. Queen Elizabeth I stayed there too. You can never escape from that woman. She was everywhere. Next, we came to Horde and Shepperton. There is a tomb in the Shepperton churchyard with a poem on it. I was afraid Mark wanted to stop and visit it. I saw him looking at the church as we passed near it, so I moved the boat suddenly and Mark's cap fell into the water. He pulled it out and was angry with me. Fortunately, he was worried about his wet cap and forgot about the church. As we came to Weybridge, the first thing we saw was a colored blazer. When we got closer, we saw that Jack was inside the blazer. Montmorency started barking furiously. Mark and I shouted loudly. Jack waved his cap and shouted too. The lock keeper thought someone had fallen into the water, so I ran out. When he saw that no one was in the water, he returned to his work. Now that Jack was on the boat, we decided to make him work. He did not want to work, of course. I had a bad day at the bank, Jack said. Mark, who was a little cruel, said, "Now you're going to have a bad day on the river. A change is good for you. It's healthy. Come on, get out of the boat and tow." Jack didn't know what to say. After a moment, he said, "It's better if I stay here and prepare tea." It's very difficult to prepare tea, and you look tired. We didn't answer. We gave him the rope. He started walking and pulling the boat. I remember that Jack once saw a young couple who were walking by the side of the river. They were pulling a rope behind them and they were talking. They didn't notice that there was no boat at the end of the rope. They had probably had a boat at the end of the rope when they started, but they had lost it. When Jack saw this, he took the rope out of the water. Then he tied it to his own boat, so the young couple towed Jack and his 3 fat friends up to Marlow. When they looked back, they saw that they were towing a boat that was not theirs. The young man was surprised and angry. The young lady said, "Oh, Henry, where is Aunt Mary?" No one knew what happened to Aunt Mary. The most exciting thing is to let girls tow your boat. You always need 3 girls. 2 of them hold the rope, and the third one runs around and laughs all the time. When they are finally ready to pull, they start running. They pull the boat too fast, and they are soon tired. They say, "Sit down on the grass to rest," and laugh while they rest. Your boat goes out into the middle of the river. "Oh, look," they say, "the boat's gone to the middle of the river." They laugh, jump up, and start pulling it again. Then one of them decides to stop because she needs her hat. Then another wants her red shawl. I know one of them needs a comb for her hair. The other wants her handkerchief. This goes on for most of the afternoon. It is never boring when 3 girls tow a boat. Jack towed us to Penton Hook. We stopped there and decided to spend the night on the boat. We found a pretty place. We tied our boat to a big tree. We were all hungry and we wanted to eat. However, Jack said, "No, let's put the canvas cover on the boat first. It will only take a few minutes." It looked simple, but it wasn't. There were 5 metal rods. You put them into special holes in the side of the boat. I didn't think this was dangerous work, but it was. I'm surprised that we are still alive to tell the story. First of all, the metal rods did not go into their holes.